Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Town of Pendleton's September Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, everyone is present except for our new member, Bob Jewell. Know that. I believe Mr. Graham is online. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. If I could have the board to review the minutes submitted. Entertain a motion for approval. Or corrections.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 10th minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
All right.
You want to do the UDO last? You wanna
And
have
there's
two?
only two.
Two, okay.
Yeah.
Old business, we have the possible amendments to the 21 Unified Development Ordinance, better known as the UDO.
Okay, so May or July, I don't remember which, we had some, a couple amendments that we continued so that we could do some more research. The first one was the, number one there, the utility standards for new developments coming in, that pertain to the requirement to hook into local water and sewer, sanitary sewer, that is. So since we have had exceptions in rezone processes where we have not required a petitioner to hook in because there are not utilities available anywhere nearby and the town does not pay to really extend water mains. I thought it good to add some language that speaks to that. There was some back and forth, I think, about the requirement for people to hook up. And I was mostly focused on less residential. We're not gonna have any, at least I wouldn't think, any major issues with residential subdivisions coming in that have 2-acre minimum lots, and because that's the smallest you can do to get a well now. So they would have to go somewhere where either they extend the main themselves or it's already existing. But for things like Indy Boat Co. or the concrete plant, when we get water in those areas that don't have it, I think it's pertinent to make those folks hook in a certain amount of time. So say we run a main down 700, I would say within, 5 to 10 years, they have to hook in. And Resky and I had kind of pow out on this one. On what kind of language can maybe just go in that's still very general. So I did amend it. This is his amendment, as written. So in cases granting exceptions to connection, which would be what you guys would do, the town may specify conditions and durations of the exceptions. And then the sanitary part of this sentence was also here from last time, because that's not our decision, essentially. It's Fall Creek's, whether if there is a line there, they make you hook up, or you can use a septic, or they have their own system. That's not really our purview. And I don't know, Tim, if you could speak to generally what they do or require. You gotta hook in or you don't.
If there is a line within 300 feet of the structure, you're required to hook in.
You require, okay. So we can leave that as, because if that changes in 20 years, we are still covered with this language if it's different.
So on the 300 feet required to connect, is there a time frame established for that connection? If they have already built out infrastructure to support an earlier development?
Yes. So you're saying the subdivision's already there?
Either that or the technical building's already there, they put in a septic system, waste handling system.
That's on the other side of the coin. So we just run a line up 600. We took it through Lynn Lawyer's Field, across 132,
Okay.
and up 600. And we did that to kind of mark our territory.
Okay.
That way Anderson can't come down there and run a line, take that away from us.
Okay.
That's a big war zone between sewer districts. Whoever's got the line there first wins.
Oh, they're not pre-drawn?
No,
Oh,
we have a district there, but
yeah.
let's say we did decide we don't want to run line over there. There's no one over there. It's too costly. So Greenfield comes up and runs line all the way up there. Next thing you know, we've got 12 warehouses want to go over there. They've got the business. On the other hand, if you've lived out there for a long time, there's no septic or sewer and we run it to you, we won't make you hook on, but it is available. Okay. That new line that's in Carol's backyard, it goes up through there. We won't make them hook on as well. But if they do, they'll pay.
Okay.
So they're gonna pay to hook on.
Okay.
Which in time will probably happen in theory, because the septic tanks will fail over time.
Right. Yeah.
So you want to spend 30 grand for a new septic system and mound, or $8 grand hook on this.
Okay.
So basically, there's no time frame defined that mandates connections for existing services.
Correct. If you go build a new house somewhere, you're gonna hook on.
If the service is available.
Yes.
So I mean, with what you guys did with Indy Boat Co. and the concrete plant, is there was not a specified time that I'm aware of in that condition. It just said once it's available. So moving forward with both this language and you could put that caveat on that as well, if you want.
I would.
Mhm.
I would.
So you can make it within 5 years, you must connect in.
You said you would.
I would put it on there.
Yeah.
The other example was on 150 where the big White House is. 150, 36. Going south of the huge mansion, GVC's house. You ever go to Walmart or Meijer
No, everything's delivered to me.
or Casino?
Me out there.
Anyway, south on 150 past the White House, it was, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 lots.
Okay.
And we give them the option of septic systems versus a line, 'cause we had to run a line down through there.
Mhm.
They opted for a line. It's actually cheaper,
Yeah. that would
cheaper,
be.
less hassle.
Yeah. not as
Once
much
it's in our
maintenance
line,
either.
it's our problem, it's gone.
Right, right.
So we put the line in.
So I feel like this language that Rescue came up with keeps it pretty like open-ended to where you have a lot of flexibility, but it just puts that in there because I don't think, I feel like unless we have this language, we really can't. I don't think we can rezone with those conditions unless we have it like somewhere like this, because it's almost like a waiver, in my opinion. It's like you are waiving the need for them to hook into water and sewer, which I mean, again, it's more just water for us, honestly. So I think this addresses that and it leaves it open enough to whatever kind of time frame you want or any other conditions to these exceptions. You can put on there as well. So that's kind of how I think. So any comments or anything you want me to change with that sentence or additions or?
I guess my only comment is we need to be cognizant of the fact that people are investing in those properties in the development when either water or sewer is not available. And make sure that we don't mandate incremental cost for connections in a short duration where they have not recovered that investment or the value of that investment.
Yeah.
Generally, it's when they fail,
Correct.
like they need a new well, they need to dig
Right.
deeper.
Right. Like, I feel like.
That's when it's like, no, go, you have water hookup
Water
available.
hookup available, and I think most heavier uses are gonna wanna hook into water anyway, instead of trying to pull on a well. But I think that when you go to look at your rezones and you see where the nearest utilities are, you know, these conditions could state, okay, you don't have to hook it until 20 years from now. Like, if it's just not feasible to get it there, but it's closer than like Indy, we're not gonna get water to Indy Boat Co. for 30 or 40 years. We're never gonna make it out there soon. So like, that's a little different as to if someone was just say a little bit further away from Baker's Point, although I think there is a main there. It's just not active right now, but for example, if there wasn't. So that's kind of what.
So you're
my
just saying
thoughts were.
each waiver we give, then we can put in a time.
You can if you want, or you can just say when it's available and when your system fails. However long.
Has that always been Fall Creek's policy? Because all the houses on 425 were forced off their 4-year-old septic systems on the sewer in about 2005.
Well, they did test and it real soon in 91.
So that's the current policy. Yeah, so it's just a case by case. When you grant the exception, you put a time limit on
Yeah.
it, case by case.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So are we okay with that sentence or that addition? Excuse me?
Yes.
Okay, and then the other one that we dealt with was something that I noticed in our institutional zoning. It does not allow utility facilities like our water towers or lift stations. Although those things are zoned institutional, maybe it was in the old zoning that was allowed, but now they're not. So I wanted to permit those things by right in institutional zoning. I have there what a utility is defined as. So the utility facility is public or private. And it's, let's see. Government agency that provides the public with electricity, gas, heat, steam, communication, transit, water, sewage collection, or similar service. So Brad, you had brought up last time communication towers. I looked into it and those are actually completely their own category. So they're only by conditional use in every zone that it's allowed. I think it's 4 have conditional uses, the rest are prohibited. And that's in section M of chapter 4, has all the standards for that. I don't think it necessarily has a height caveat to it, because I think those are pretty ranging in size. It has a fall zone area requirement, but not necessarily size. But each of those, again, would be conditional use, so it would be up to the BZA to determine if it's in an appropriate area. And I would say that would count for the on top of the building ones too. You know, not just your regular kind of comms stuff like where Verizon comes in and says, hey, I want to put this on top of a Starbucks. I would consider that something that would need a conditional use to go there.
I thought there was a carve out for public utilities and they're not subject to zoning requirements for local municipalities. So, okay.
I don't know anything like that. The only exception I remember we have is for billboard signs or pole signs, excuse me. Because government signs they have to be a standard pole and stuff like that. So I know, because we prohibit billboard signs, but I know those are the exception, like the historic markers are technically pole signs, you know, things like that. Anywho, so that's what I found. So I'd like to be able to allow that, because I know we're looking at building some new electric substations. Eventually we'll need another water tower. So if we didn't have this zoning included, I wouldn't know what to rezone that property, because I imagine we would just kind of buy some parcel. We don't need a whole big thing of it. Kind of like what you guys do with your lift stations. It's just those parcels. I think that's what we do.
The reference to transportation, what does that entail?
I would imagine maybe, transport, so like our maintenance barn, our, street department, things like that. Like where they keep their salt trucks or. I don't really know, or maybe, yeah, EV stations. Yeah, charging stations.
Very broad category.
It is a broad category for sure.
Flexible, I guess.
So, okay, all right. Well, that's the only 2 that I have. So, you can vote to adopt, amend those as discussed or as written.
So you're gonna just adopt utility as a conditional permitted use with this definition. That
Yeah.
first sentence.
Yeah, so we'll just change it from a gray box to a green box.
Very good. Do I have a motion to accept the changes made to adoptions tonight, the UDO?
So,
So move to have second,
Second.
thank you. Have a motion second to approve the adoptions to the UDO as submitted tonight. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, no problem. Can you pull up the overlay, please? All right, so we have a new ordinance to look at tonight, and then the other is amending the access management control ordinance. So it's this one, it says presentation, that's the map, we could look at that there for sure, but you guys should all be able to see that, 'cause you're probably not gonna be able to see it up here very well.
That's okay.
All right, so this is a new ordinance we are proposing. This was something you guys had brought up to staff last year at some point, if I'm not mistaken, and so we got working on it this year. And basically what this is a, oh, this is the actual ordinance. I'm sorry, Jennifer, it's called presentation. It's probably in the September folder. There we go, presentation for adoption there. That's one, right. Thank you. So corridors, play an important role in the town's image. That's our gateways into town, as well as what folks see from the highway. So what this document did is kind of put together some solutions for when properties do one of a few things, when they expand by a certain percentage, change uses, or are a completely brand new build. So we're really kind of looking to have a more inviting streetscape, be more pedestrian oriented. So we looked at quite a few items of what we could have some stricter standards on that would bring those kinds of things about. So we hired HWC with their subcontractor Civic Blueprint. And we did a 6-member steering committee. We had 4 meetings. We had an open house. And that was back in August. We had a pretty fair turnout to that to develop this ordinance. So if you can go to the 3rd page, this one, it says suggestions for existing buildings. Yes, thank you. So I'm just gonna go over kind of some of the major touch points. I sent you all the finalized ordinance for adoption on the 4th. That's what the planning commission meeting was supposed to be, but we figured you'd probably want some time to process that document, which is why we moved it. So the suggestions for existing buildings is kind of that first tier of stuff, or excuse me, of what would trigger a update. So if someone is changing the use of their structure in a very stark different way, I don't know, you go from a hair salon to a restaurant, that would trigger a use change. You probably have to do a lot of remodeling anyway, where we would need building permits. Or if someone is expanding a business, this is where those things could be triggered. And basically you can kind of work with property owners to phase in a modernization of their building. We have a lot of older structures here that are built in a lot of different styles. So having a little more cohesiveness with that is the goal of these existing buildings. So preventing kind of monotonous buildings. So next page, please. So the next is standards for new construction. So this is after you've rezoned something, or if it's already properly rezoned and they're coming in for a site plan review. We're going to be looking at the siting of the parcel, where the buildings need to sit. The requirements for setbacks are probably the largest thing in this section, where instead of having the buildings sit really far off of the road and having, we don't allow all the parking in front right now per code, but we allow quite a considerable amount. It pushes that to the sides and the rear, really focuses on, again, even though we already require sidewalks and trails, whatever our plan says for each development, this is just a little bit extra for that. It's just a little more pedestrian based. So the landscaping is thicker, the requirements for shrubberies and trees and things of that nature. So next slide, please. just more pedestrian oriented. So we also came up with some standards for brand new construction. Again, this is where you rezone something and they're in site plan development or they're in platting and they're getting a building permit for some more architectural details than what we require right now. We do have a pretty solid set of architecture standards. We require up to, I think it's 3 or more materials. You have to have so many percentage of windows, things of that nature, but this just kind of adds on top of that. If you're building a new structure, it has to have more bells and whistles if you're in this gateway entry area. Next slide, please. One thing I'm really excited for is the franchise architecture standards. So we are not really allowing franchise architecture. So you could still use the colors and the logos and things like that of your business, but we don't want a cookie cutter copy and paste kind of look. So you can see some examples here. I really like that Chick-fil-A. That's still using the colors, but that one, there's a palm tree, so it's probably in Florida. It doesn't look like all the other Chick-fil-A's you've probably seen. So it's just like more unique structures for those entryway areas. Next, please. So other things, like I said, parking was a big part of this, putting more to the sides and the rear so that you have more of a streetscape. I know that the historic design guide standards that we have speaks to continuing what they call like the streetscape or the building scape, things like that. Hi, Dr. Lau. Paint colors, materials, fences, signage, things of those nature are all just kind of a little more heightened with this document. So what next steps that'll happen, you guys will vote on a recommendation, whether or not to adopt this as part of the UDO. It would be a subchapter of chapter 2. We have a floodway overlay ordinance within that as well. And so this would be just second to that. So we have an overlay section in chapter 2, but we only have one overlay right now. And then on the 18th, town council will vote on it. They do have up to 90 days to put it on their agenda. And then after they adopt it, it will be in effect and we will create a design review board. So that was another part of this. There will be a 3-person design review board. You can have town staff, you can have designers, people from neighborhood groups, developers even can be on that. And they will be a part of our technical review process when it comes to kind of anything you guys see or anything BZA sees. Since this isn't downtown, they would be incorporated with HBC. So basically that's what this is. If you want me to go over the map with you, I'm happy to, but that's basically just the areas that would be under the purview of this. Residential is excluded. And you'll see kind of a list of prohibited and conditional uses that would change if a new use comes in. Anything that's occurring right now, just like anything else we have, is always grandfathered in if for some reason it becomes prohibited in this. So continue to do what everybody's doing until they sell their property to a developer.
Or new.
Or new, yeah.
Nice job, man. I didn't see a lot of big things that come out
Yeah.
and change it there. I think it's imperative we get it going as quick as we can because we never know who's gonna walk in the door tomorrow.
Right, and
Secondly,
Yeah.
they're always gonna ask for variances. They always do.
yeah,
So we still have control over that.
yeah,
So
yeah, we do. And I think with that design review board in place too, having that input from them now, with BZA, if you happen to be within that district, will probably have its own set of kind of bullet points that they would need to meet for that findings of fact, I would imagine, right?
Well, and I like that because each project's gonna be unique.
Yeah,
And we can't put every detail of the rules in place that's gonna apply to it,
Sure.
but having that review board
yeah.
that knows and look at this specific project
Mm-hmm.
and, and
So-
I like the whole idea of it seems to be designed to calm the traffic a little bit, trying to make it
Yeah.
look more like you're coming through a neighborhood and not just zooming through, trying to get
Yes,
through.
it's
from one
much
side
more
to the other.
pedestrian than vehicle
Yeah,
oriented.
the-
I mean,
the heavy
obviously, you still have your
Landscaping, the parking in the
parking in the
back,
back,
the
yeah.
connectivity between the businesses,
Mhm.
all of those
Yeah.
things just kind of calm the, would hope to calm the traffic.
Yeah, I think that's a huge factor to this.
My only other comment, and I made this comment, at the public hearing that I attended on this is great. If our next steps after this could be that additional plan,
Oh, like a corridor plan?
I don't feel like that was what,
That's
It's
what Laney
called-
and Brian were talking about. Usually they do that first and then they build these standards, but we're kind of doing it backwards.
well, it was more the plan for, and actually, placemaking, I believe Hancock County just implemented theirs, we're going through the stages
Yeah.
of their public hearing, but it adds that additional, flavor of it's the feeling of, yes, so
Yeah,
the
mhm.
character,
Yeah.
it gives that feel for what we want our community to be
Mhm.
as far as artwork and signage
Yeah,
and just that overall, it's really keeping that quaint, charismatic charm that our town has, but it's verbalized in this document a little
Yeah.
more. And
yeah,
I do feel like that's next steps after this, and
Yeah,
pretty
it-
quickly.
it is.
I don't want that to be another year process. I would like to have that as a motion to start moving forward.
I have to see what's in the budget.
Yep.
Because we have two plans for updating next
Yep.
year, so.
But I feel like it's imperative
No, I
because
completely agree.
things have been happening so quickly.
They have, yeah, absolutely.
Kyle, you have any comments?
And if you
Fabulous.
have any edits, we can, adopt or whatnot with amendments and then.
I'm sure as we go forward, we're gonna be making. little-
Yeah, but between
tweaks
now
on there.
and town council and for this evening, if you found something that is sticking out that's wrong, HWC can correct it for town council.
Right.
No, I participated in the development of it and, I think it's one of those situations that with the growth and development that is arriving as we speak,
Mhm.
getting these parameters in place will help us create and maintain the image that we want for people entering the community.
Yeah.
And, I think we all know that most commercial developments strive to do
As little as possible.
as little as possible,
I mean, I hate
meet the
to say it.
minimal, requirements.
Yeah,
And I think this will help tighten things up so that,
and I do think too, we hadn't had any new development in such a long time because of the moratorium and COVID and stuff. And then actually seeing our UDO in use, we found that certain areas weren't exactly cutting it. So putting this together, you sometimes can't see those things until you see that code book in action and it just wasn't working in those areas.
we're already seeing the scrape and build with standard
Right.
templates
Standard
here in the
templates, yeah.
community,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, I like the franchise architecture.
Right,
I think that would be
exactly.
good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's.
and the
a
other
huge
thing
here.
is, when businesses do churn, hopefully this architectural standard will allow other businesses to come in
Yeah,
and reutilize that site and facility and
and
make
what,
a clean transition without it.
what we had discussed too is, when you have certain instances where, like we were trying to determine what would trigger this, and Carol, I think you remember this from our very last meeting with them, where we didn't necessarily want it to be so prohibitive that a building would sit vacant because someone would say, oh, I have to put all this stuff into it, I can't afford that. But almost like making that a little bit more easy and like phased in where it's like, okay, they're just changing the layout of the parking lot. We can work with just the parking lot. You're not expanding the building or changing the building at all, but here we can make a small step in the right direction where it's still feasible instead of it just sitting vacant for years and years because nobody wants to do that. So I like that too, that it has kind of a, here's what we can do for existing, and then here's what new builds must do just straight off the bat. So it's more realistic, for making sure buildings, instead of being vacant, at least have a tenant.
So are we going through a new comprehensive planning?
Mhm.
It's okay. So what I mentioned could really be incorporated in that for some of the,
I think as far as land uses, yes.
okay,
But when you're talking about placemaking, that's too detailed for comp plan.
okay,
I think it definitely could be its own kind of corridor plan, because our, Brian and Laney had talked about that, it's basically taking these standards and making a plan around it with what you do in the streetscape.
okay.
Because I had wondered if we would.
Can we get a
land
discount?
uses in that, huh?
Can we get a discount?
It's
We give you this business, if you
Right,
give us a
we
discount. on
buy in bulk.
extra. That's right.
Costco plants. Yeah, no, that
I'm
was,
just trying to think of ways to expedite,
Yeah.
because this plan right here, I wish was in place a year ago.
yeah, absolutely.
Cheryl,
What? No comment, looks great.
thank you. Any questions, comments from the audience?
Curious to see.
Could you come to the podium, please?
Oh, the map. You put the map up.
Hi there. I'd be curious to see the map, the overlay that you were
Just
talking
a
about.
minute here.
And you should be able to zoom in on that down here at the bottom.
What particular area?
Is there a certain
What
spot? we're looking?
particular area are you looking at? We can move it around.
So there's.
Just along
67.
67. I was just kind of curious.
Sorry. So here's 67, here's 36, 38, 69, and then this is State Street. it
So where the slashes
See the
are,
black
yeah,
hash lines?
okay, that's where we're talking
That's
about.
the area that'll be affected on each side of the road.
Okay, say
Point
that
the
again.
lines to her, Hannah.
doesn't- Yeah, so these hash marks here,
Oh, okay.
it's this whole area, and then the one around the highway is a little bit bigger. This is unincorporated, so that's not ours. Same with that there, that's Anderson, so we don't.
Okay.
It's within 600 feet of 9, 38, 67. And within
And
a half,
69 is
half a mile.
Yeah.
from 69.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We can leave that up. Do you guys have any questions on this? No?
You got questions or comments? Okay. Thank you. I'll make a recommendation to adopt the gateway overlay ordinance as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brad. All those in favor of the gateway overlay ordinance as presented tonight, please say aye. Those opposed? Thank you.
All right. And just as anything else in the UDO, it's a living document. Stuff's not working or we want to add stuff, we just amend it. Like we do with the UDO. So the next one, okay, tell me how you'd like to go through this. So this is the access management ordinance. You have my PDF on there that has all of my edit comments. Most of these things are just clarification. It's adding, and or splitting up some sections. I can go through each one if you'd like, but there was really just three that strike me as discussion pieces. This kind of, we wanted to clarify the processes because this document was created with NDOT, how that looks. We know how it goes. You guys know how it goes, but sometimes developers get a little confused on who they're supposed to talk to for stuff. So it was just kind of clarifying those processes. And, we've discussed with NDOT amending this to make that so, and if they were behind it, they understood how our processes work too anyway, but sometimes it's good to just spell things out a little bit better. So, the 3 points I wanted to discuss, if you could scroll to page 11, please. The minimum access spacing between adjacent access points. So this is the spacing between driveways. It goes by speed limit, and then the minimum space between the driveways, and it's measured center line to center line. However, looking at most subdivisions, even if the posted speed were to be 20, which is less than what's on this table, it'd probably be 100 feet of distance. That doesn't happen in residential subdivisions. I've seen anywhere from 45 feet to at most 90 in our existing subdivisions. So I wanted to put a caveat that this has got to be for anything but that. you can't really fit in if you're not going over your density max and you're doing, you know, your minimum parcel size, which people have the right to do. It's just, you can't do this in most of our zones, maybe SF1, maybe. So I just wanted to put a note that these were exempt. I think we probably just look at making sure that they're at least 5 feet from the property lines, because that is the minimum spacing from your property line you have to be. And we kind of just usually go through and make sure there's not just one sitting on top of the other. People aren't backing into each other, but it's never really been a problem with,
Well, like you said, it's
Like
not
turning.
possible to,
yeah.
it's not possible.
And these are local roads
Yeah.
for the most part. They're not, you know, if there were to be some, let's see, I'm trying to think if someone just builds a house on Old 132. Like, we would want to make sure, especially since that road has a higher miles per hour you can go, that would be where a residential one that.
What
would-
about
would use
Baker's Point where the houses, those more executive style houses are on? Well, they've got.
And they're on a
they've got-
private drive.
Yeah, they've got
Yeah.
the little cutout, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So like, it's gonna be kind of more one-off things
Yeah.
where if someone's just parceling off a property to build a house, we want to make sure that it's separated, but within the residential subdivision on a local road, you're just not really gonna get that.
No. Fine.
So that was one thing. Any discussion on that one? Okay,
So I had a question on 2A. It says all single-family driveways shall be separated from the nearest right-of-way line of an intersecting street by at least 50 feet. Don't we
Hmm.
have some minimum lot sizes that are like 50 or 60 feet?
we do. Yeah, lot
And-
widths.
And it doesn't
Mhm.
say where it's measured from under that section.
No, I would assume center line of the roadway
Well, It says
to,
from the right-of-way line.
from the right of way line. No, that's a good
I
point.
don't know,
I
maybe
didn't catch
just
that
put a
one.
pin in that for some future.
Yeah, no, let's take a look at that one. It's A. Or no, here, excuse me, A. Yeah, that says it has to be 50
Usually you
feet
just
from
try
the
to put the
intersection.
driveway on the side away from.
Away from the intersection, yeah. Oh, that's a good catch. Yeah, we'll take a look at it. The next one, Jennifer, if you could go to page 14. So this is for one-way drive accesses. We do have a figure for this that kind of shows an example, and we're gonna be updating all of these graphics. They're kind of gritty. So a lot that utilizes the pair of one-way drives it says shall be a minimum of 16 feet wide measured perpendicularly. But there's no maximum size that a one-way drive can be. This just says it has to be at least 16 feet. And it also doesn't speak to how far apart they need to be placed, like you must have one on the southernmost and the northernmost, or the eastern and the western. Because the way that it is right now, I mean, you can put them on top of each other. So I wanted to introduce that as a kind of a discussion point. We might not get there tonight, but we need to put it in the think tank and figure out what the best kind of thing is. Do we want to look at other examples? Do we want to just kind of make something up that we think works? I don't know, but it's just something that's not really clear. Does that make sense? Does everyone get what I'm saying? So you could have like a 30-foot wide one-way drive as long as you paint the one-way in arrow and put a sign. Like that seems pretty, and it could be 20 feet from your other one-way
It
entrance.
could be like the old Volk driveway, and it's like 150 feet wide.
Technically, if it's a one-way, it's a one-way, so.
Why don't you bring back some examples for us?
And we need some construction details.
Okay.
We have standard,
Construction detail,
I'm sure the town's got a set of standard construction.
we
details.
do, but not for one-way drives. I think we just have regular commercial drive, right?
We just need to come up with one. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other towns that have. them.
Yeah, we can look at that, okay. So we'll come up with a street standard and look at some other places.
Don't need to read.
Is there any places in particular you want me to look? Any towns or anything like that, or any recommendations on where I should
Wherever
start?
you can hack into their computers.
Whatever I can get, okay.
It's pulling from your network of people.
Yeah.
I'll try to look and see what I.
Yeah,
going on.
yeah, see what you can come up with. Maybe I'll talk with Banning too. I think they helped us make our street standards.
That's probably your best
Yeah.
bet.
Probably. It's a good one. I'll talk with them. Okay, but yeah, and then if you kind of find anything, come up with anything, have a question between now and October. So we'll keep that one out of the amendments and just send me an email or call me and let me know what you find.
So if we end up putting a detail on the town standards, then you can just say refer to town standards.
Sure, yeah, we could do that. Yeah. I do think it would be good though to kind of talk it out and hear and like explain the standard of what it says. Okay. The last one I have is on page 29, please.
Just real quick, taking
uh-huh.
a look on page 15,
Mhm.
says the median 10-foot max. Why is there a maximum on there?
Let me get to 15 real quick. Hold on a sec.
Boulevard drive.
Okay, so yes, that is for a boulevard driveway. I believe they can be 4 to 10 feet wide, landscaped median boulevard. And if you want to take that max out, we certainly can. If someone wants a larger boulevard style.
When is that curved in there?
Yes,
Drawing is. over.
well, a lot of the drawings aren't real great, so.
I think that's something else we could have a standard detailed drawing
For a median,
for a boulevard entrance.
a boulevard entrance, okay.
But Brad, I think I took the max out. What would you know what it is?
You need a minimum. I mean, I think.
Yeah,
boulevard's
minimum,
probably
keep the
too
minimum. Keep the minimum.
And
The
what I'm
minimum is
thinking
4.
is, if you want to do landscaping, if you want to do placement of artwork and in that median, if you want, a signage or a fountain.
And some have the raised medians now, which take a little extra space and then they do
Yeah.
trees.
The only thing I don't want is for someone to say, okay, I put in a 40-foot median and now I have an extra style of entrance and exit, because everything is always about having as much access points as possible. At least that's what I've noticed. So I do think it should have a max, or it should be, you have to go ask like BZA or something. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's probably too much red tape, but I have a feeling that might get taken advantage of. Is what I'm saying.
Probably right.
Then you get a large open area too, that we don't have landscape standards then to fall back on.
Right.
You have a lot of big bedrock of 30 feet, we've had some of that happen. So.
Right. So I do think it's appropriate to definitely make it bigger, but I do think we need to kind of put at least some sort of parameter on it. Cause I could see it getting taken. So we will look into boulevard entrance, street standard. And then also, a potential larger max for, median, the landscape median. Okay. And then, on 29, there was, that this talks about, this section 28, 29 is about waivers. So Denise, caught that we don't have in here, if you are not given a waiver by planning commission, you can go to BZA and seek a variance. So I want to add that. And then on the next page, on 30, since we already kind of discussed this, the median and boulevard, we could put those standards here. We can reference it anywhere we want to, but I don't really know if we should put paved in here, because again, I think that'll get taken advantage of, where someone will just slap a big concrete median. I think it's okay to incorporate hardscape, like if you have brick pavers or stamped concrete with a design, like I think that's totally appropriate, but it needs to have greenery of some sort. So I think we could say shall be intersections with landscaped areas that can have hardscape or something along those lines, like can accent with hardscape, or it can't be over a certain percentage of hardscape as a decorative use. It can't just be plain concrete. I don't think we want to see that. So what do you think about that?
Just leave it as with landscape there.
Okay.
Then you review, you'll have site review.
Right, okay. So I had initially just put to remove pave, but if we wanted to put something back in, we could. Or it would just be landscape, because there's not really, and if we're looking into a standard for that, we can also look at the landscaping standards that need to be in it. Because again, the minimum you're gonna find is, oh, okay, I have to do landscaping, I'm just gonna throw down grass. And that's better, but it's not very aesthetic, you know, it's kind of boring. So maybe we incorporate some landscape standards in there, and I know like salt tolerant species, we could probably come up with some things like that, and I know that that mentions that in here. So for now, I will remove paved and just put landscape. So that's all I got. Was there questions about any of the other edits that Denise and I had put in here? Like I said, mostly just to clarify our processes and also make sure that we added all of our processes in here. This really only spoke about plats, but you guys can see site plans, you see rezones, things of that nature. And it didn't mention a lot of building permits, so we put that in too. Anything else with this? You do, and you'll have to say however you want to vote as discussed with the leaving out of some things and the additions of the others.
Okay.
And you need to do public comment too.
Any comments or questions? We'll make the assumption you folks thought this was the town council meeting tonight.
No? Okay.
Okay, good. Good, you're right on with. Okay, no question, any questions for? Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the access management and control ordinance, those items that were discussed and approved for change tonight, with those being researched and presented at a later date.
Mhm.
So, do I have a second?
I make a second.
Thank you, Jen. All those in favor of the access management control ordinance changes as adopted in the back, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you.
All right. That's all I got.
Folks have any questions or comments?
Hi there. Lisa Boylan, 207 Taylor Street. I got the letter from Banning Engineering, in regards to a trail that is gonna be put up Taylor Street to connect to the bridge over the interstate to our park, I assume. I'm just wanting to gather more information. I haven't seen the overall map to know kind of what that's supposed to look like, and I'm trying to understand it better. Can,
Yeah.
Believe right now.
We can get your email and send you what we have. It's in
Okay.
like very, very preliminary stages. So basically, the state gave us funding for preliminary engineering, which is putting together shelf-ready plans. And then at some point, if we either get funding or if they have construction dollars to give us, we can then pull one of those phases off the shelf and build it. So right now, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at where our topo is, where all of our right of way and property lines are, where utilities are. And if we find that we're running into too many problems in a certain section, if we, you know, because in the older areas of town, it's pretty gridlocked in a lot of areas as far as stuff that's underground. We do have the potential to reroute it if need be. But I wouldn't look at construction dollars until 29 or 30.
oh, wow.
So it's gonna take
Okay.
3 years to build shelf-ready plans for this project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I talked to the surveyor that
Mhm.
was out there.
Yeah.
And kind of the impression he had and what he was explaining was very scary.
Mhm.
And so it sounded like it was going to be so close to people's houses
Mhm.
and disrupt a lot of sidewalks,
Mhm.
landscaping that was there. And so very concerned.
Yeah, and that's why we're looking at, that's part of preliminary engineering is this feasible
Yeah.
here with what we're trying to do? And if it's not, where else can we put it?
Okay.
Because part of those dollars from the state is exactly what you said, is connecting the west side of the business park. Or not the west side, still the east side, the west side of the creek to our downtown. So that's what they're funding, and so that's how we have to try and figure out how to get from point A to point B. Over there, it's easy. It's just empty land over there.
Right.
You know, that's super simple, but
Right.
going through our downtown, since it's so developed with infrastructure, it does.
Is there a plan to connect the west side to other communities? Or,
Well, I think eventually, you know, we'd like to, we do have a trail project going down 38, you know, the bridge goes over and then there's a 10-foot trail where Mystic Waters is. So as those developments to the west develop, they'll be required to put in their own chunk of 10-foot trail. And eventually, you know, that could connect all the way out to 13. But then it would be other communities' responsibility, since that's what Lapel and unincorporated Madison County, they could connect into it if they wanted to.
so, and I know no plans have been set, but do you have an idea, instead of going onto people's properties to do this 10-foot wide trail, that you would take over part of the existing roadway and make certain roads maybe one-way street to
It's-
be able to
yeah,
share that?
It's definitely part of it. If that's what's feasible, then we can do that. We've also looked at widening Taylor as well, because it is a pretty narrow road. But we want to purchase the least amount of right of way as possible. But the way that these old towns are set up is your property in some cases is just outside of your front door. So there's actually a lot more that is technically the towns and the municipalities that you're dealing with, that it's not really a property taking. So I know that can look like it's your property, but it might not be. But we'll definitely take that into consideration. We don't want a trail, and as soon as someone opens their door,
Right,
you know, we don't want to do that.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we're still fitting the standards of the state dollars, you know, and what they require, as well as ADA compliance. But if, I know our engineers talk to us where if there are instances like that where we can't kind of fit it to where it's an appropriate length away from someone's house, we can jog it across the street and kind of do something like this.
okay,
So where there might already be existing more room, we can utilize that. We don't have to, it doesn't have to be all on one side.
okay.
So if there are chances like that, we can kind of move it around.
Yeah, because Taylor Street does provide that, where the north side is very close as you're closer to Maine, but then
Right.
further away as you
Yeah,
get further
and-
west.
You know, and you get that with towns that were platted 200 years ago. That's just how they are.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, so separate, but still talking about roadways.
Oh, and I can get you a phase map. It's not an
Okay.
engineered map. It just kind of shows our general idea where we want it to go. And then the phases that we kind of like to do with it.
Okay,
But it's not engineered.
okay.
It's just an idea. on a map.
Gotcha. So I might have talked to you a year or so ago about Main Street and how terrible it is to drive down that road,
Mm,
having 2 lanes of traffic with parking on both sides.
yeah, I
Is
know,
there
it's a
plans
bummer.
in place to get rid of one side of parking?
Well, if we did do that, and there's no plans in place, I know that the town manager has looked at what can be done there. But if we were to do something, I imagine it would be with this project, because part of it is coming up Main. So instead of doing one project and then waiting a couple of years, you kind of just do it all together, you know, kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Mhm.
So I imagine if we did do something, it would be at that point, but I'm not aware of any plans with any ideas on that road.
Can I suggest you
Yeah.
please look at it
Yeah.
and remove one side of parking if you want to keep the 2 lanes open? Because I
Mhm.
have hit somebody's rearview mirror, or side mirror.
Yeah. It's-
Luckily it didn't damage anything. I went to him and told him I did it. Even at 30 miles an hour, that's too fast to go down that road and it's not. And because everyone wants to get over so far, because they're afraid of hitting something on the side of the road, that you're making it a one-way street. People are taking their, turns going in between when 2 cars are side by side on
Mhm.
each side of the street.
Mhm.
So if you haven't been over there, I invite you to go drive down Main
Drive
Street
down.
in the middle of the day when it's busy.
Yeah.
And you'll see, because people park there for the Heritage Fair or the June Jamboree, and they walk over because Pendleton has very little parking. And the Community Foundation also takes up a whole lot of parking over there.
Mhm.
So one concern I had with the trail is my neighbor on the north side, if the trail went through, it would take away her parking and she can't park in the front because if the community foundation is
Yeah.
there, they take up her spot there. So she's double whammy.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of things like that
Yeah.
that would be very disruptive.
Mhm.
But,
And I mean, we also have looked at like rear access off the alleys, you know, assuring if there were to be access points that are in place right now, that you have at least one access point off of an alley, but I know not everybody is fed off the alley.
my alley is terrible because of all that construction that
Mhm.
happened at the house behind me. There's a
Gotcha.
huge hole on the side of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well, and
Yeah, I can send that.
any plans to update the alleys, kind of given that, because of all the water runoff it
Yeah.
has.
Yeah, I know they deteriorate. Unfortunately, with alleys, they are not a part of our, what is it called? Community cross, no, what is the thing, the regulated miles? Certified road miles. So
You
that's
can
how we
name
get
them.
most of our money.
You can name the alleys.
There's
which
been a
fall
reason
under
that
it.
they haven't wanted to do that. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that's been brought up before.
Cause I know some communities have.
So- Our biggest dollars that we get to improve the roads, repave them, reconstruct them is from a program called Community Crossings Matching Grant. Because just the town alone budget for doing a roadway is not really much of anything. So those dollars that we get from CCMG do not count alleys as roads. And it sounds like even if they're named, they don't count that either. So there's not really a budgetary option I'm aware of unless they change that we can utilize to address the alleys as we'd like to. It really is a rock and a hard place with those because, okay, if it can't be a road, then how am I supposed to get road mileage dollars or tax dollars for it?
Mhm.
You know, I don't know why that is, but that's
Mhm.
just just NDOT.
Did
you say Yeah.
you're located 211?
Oh, 7.
207.
Hannah
If
Rose,
there's a chuck hole,
We'll
we
take a
can,
look at
we
that.
can fill in chuck holes, but I know it's not as good as.
Well, it's not a chuck hole. It was, they put in a brand new, I want to say they did a water line maybe or something, and
Okay.
they went through the sidewalk, and then when they report it, some of the dirt, on the property sunk down in, and so it's big hole right there and so on. And then Ring Construction built that monstrosity
Mhm.
up there. And all that traffic was going in and out and it has broken down and
Oh, I think I know where you're talking about.
it's,
Okay.
and then plus it's very narrow
Yes.
with the vegetation coming off of the house on the corner.
Mhm.
And so it's
Yeah.
not the best.
Yeah,
So,
we can definitely have the street department take a look at it, but I mean, anything we can do is probably gonna be more of a Band-Aid, to be honest with
Okay.
you. Until we can kind of figure something out, but I know that has been discussed by the town manager and town council on, you know, we have to find some sustainable way to deal with our alleys. If we can't use CCMG money, cause then, I mean, like I said, we get what, at least 700 or 800,000 a year from them. I mean, it's a lot of money. But in roads, a little does not go a long way.
right.
It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is.
Not that I'm a proponent of chip seal, but that is a cheaper
Yeah,
alternative.
absolutely.
And then
We
that
would-
would at least be more solid than,
Yes, absolutely.
what we
We've
got.
utilized that a lot with, because it's been shown to make the longevity of the road
Mhm.
last a lot longer than just reconstruction or repaving, and that's been huge for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, is using that as a cheaper option for now.
Width and leveling
Mhm.
treatment, so, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, let me give you my card after this and you can
Okay.
shoot me an email. I'll get you that, base map.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're
Hannah
welcome.
Rose, I
Yes,
would
ma'am.
like that map. I have not seen it and I'm not sure if anyone else on the board
Yeah,
would
can you
like
just
it.
send all of us?
Sure.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. Is Arabian Point supposed to put a sidewalk on Main Street?
It's in their plans, but we're doing it because we're widening Main there and redoing the storm thing as part of the Elm Street
It looked like
project.
they're just running their sidewalks out to the pavement, so I was curious.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's got it on his plans, but we'll be the ones building it because we didn't want him to put it in and then we had to rip it out. Or damage it.
And that's on our next project. We should be in this fall. We'll get funds for that. That'll be the 25.
Okay.
when that will take place.
Do you have any plans or information on that as well? I know someone who's building a house and he reached out to me and he asked about that widening project. I did not know.
The Main
what-
Street one?
Yes.
Do we
He's
have any
building in
plans
Raven
yet?
Point.
Yeah, they have some very general plans,
Okay.
but Elm Street's a little bit more in detail,
Is
than
that would be
Main.
sooner? Yeah.
Cause we went ahead and combined them, as a joint project to be able to, save funds in the long run with bid processing, contractor and timing. So, it was with our Elm Street drain project that was very kind of high level, but I mean, I can get that presentation to you.
Their house isn't done until the end of the year. They just did not want to put in extensive, money into the property and it be torn up. So I told them I would get what information I could.
Yeah. It would be from Elm Street to Madison Avenue, that improvement's gonna take place.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
they're along that stretch,
Okay,
to that area.
thank you.
Hey, Becca Harbor, 235 East Water Street. While we're on the path topic, do we have any plans to extend like a sidewalk on Pendleton Avenue out toward the railroad that way and or connect it to McDonald's beyond that? Go that direction as opposed to possible, not that we shouldn't go through Taylor, but that as well.
What do you mean, McDonald's? What, there is a sidewalk?
I don't
there?
know that road out there by Eva's Pancake House that is no longer Eva's Pancake House, the crossing.
Oh, the crossing?
67 or 9,
Yes, okay.
you want to go all the way down Pilton Avenue there, then cut back to
Because the
McDonald's.
sidewalk ends at some point when you're going up on Pendleton Avenue
Yeah.
and it doesn't continue. So I'm wondering if we could continue it to that road
Mhm.
and then beyond that, I'm not sure where it would go.
Yeah.
But eventually
So,
it would be nice to connect it all the way through to the McDonald's area
I don't understand how to connect to McDonald's.
through the reformatory, through the golf course. I don't know, something like
You have to
that.
cross the railroad and the creek.
That's
No.
true.
Yeah.
Okay, well, don't cross the railroad after, just.
So this
cut through
business park
somewhere.
trail
Okay.
would be, I mean, you could walk, if we get a sidewalk there, I see what you're saying. If you live on South Pendleton Avenue, you could walk up, to Taylor or wherever it might be and walk over and walk to McDonald's that way. But I don't think we have any plans of going through the reformatory property or, over the creek, we only have one bridge. So we'd have to purchase a bridge. Don't think that'd be fiscally feasible. But as far as the sidewalk on South Pendleton, we are planning for one because, IMPA is moving the electric poles. It's either because I think they're overloaded. So they have to put new poles in that can handle a higher voltage because they're overloaded right now. So that project, I believe IMPA is working on with our electric department right now. So when they engineered it, we made them move it in a way that we could put in a sidewalk eventually on it would be on the west side of South Pendleton, with the electric pole here, the sidewalk here, and then the road. Now, dollars for that, I do not know. I would say it's in the budget simply because of how expensive it is just to run a sidewalk, and our concrete sidewalk budget is, again, thin. And it's not really for new construction projects, it's for maintaining what we have, or fixing it, so. I think we probably have to look at some sort of grant money to get that sidewalk built, but it will have a plan that we can pull off the shelf. If we get grant money or if CCMG opens up to allowing new sidewalks, right now they only allow replacement of existing sidewalks. So that could change, but, I wouldn't say it's in a plan with, okay, we're gonna do this in 2028. Yeah. But it's a good place. We need it.
Mr. Gardner? Questions?
What was that?
Any questions, Mr. Gardner? Doc? No? No? Okay, meeting adjourned.